As a gamer, video editor, and content consumer, my desk is very important to me. It's gone through a lot of changes over the years, most notably that weird time I tried to use a CRT as my main display.
Looks like he's actually using this as a streaming setup, which is absolutely nuts.
As well as multiple different screen changes. I plan to do a full series on the mistakes I've made while working on my desk, and today I wanted to cover one of the most important parts, the monitor. Welcome to Tech Hacks. About 2 years ago, on January 3rd, 2019, I ordered a Viatech GN32DB monitor. It was 32 inches, which was larger than any computer screen I had ever owned at the time. It was curved, which sounded fun, and it was 1440p 144Hz, which were the real draws for me. I was beyond excited, and when it finally showed up, it became an immediate addition to my desk. This thing was sweet. It was bright and huge, and it made me feel like my entire field of view was being replaced by high-resolution, high-refresh rate gaming. And at only $380, it was a total steal. Or so I thought. Before I talk more about the monitor, I'd like to make sure everyone is on the same page when it comes to the features of a gaming display. Now, your ability to play games on a high resolution and high refresh rate monitor are largely dependent on your computer, but that's a video for another time. For now, let's focus on the monitors alone. Also, for the sake of clarity, I'll be talking about monitor panels in this video, which specifically refers to the part of a monitor where light shines through the pixels and displays an image. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is refresh rate, or hertz. This is a measure of how many times per second your monitor updates the image from your computer. Think about it like a camera, where you have to increase your shutter speed in order to capture more detail in a moving object. This same principle applies with gaming monitors, where the faster your monitor can refresh the image, the easier you'll be able to see your targets in motion. This is especially important with things like first-person shooters, where enemies will often be moving so fast on screen that they might change positions in under a second. If your monitor can't show you exactly how they moved in that time, you might miss your shot. It's hard to convey over video just how much of a difference it makes to play games on a high refresh rate monitor, but trust me, once you try it, you can never go back. The main issue here is that the faster you want to run your refresh rate, the harder that's going to be on your monitor. The most common refresh rate for almost every display in the world is 60 Hz, which means it's showing a new image 60 times every second. This is perfectly fine for video, which is commonly only running at 24 or 30 frames per second, but it isn't great for games, which can often have movement that occurs in under a 60th of a second, like a gunshot. High-end monitor panels are often made with better technology that allows the image to be updated faster. But what about cheap panels that weren't made to have high refresh rates? Well, to push a cheap panel faster, you can actually overclock it, which is artificially increasing the refresh rate by forcing the panel to refresh faster. However, the pixels of a display have to be able to keep up with a rapidly changing image. On cheap, overclocked panels, this can often lead to what's called ghosting, or slow pixels taking so long to change over that they leave a trail behind the image on screen. The second feature of a gaming monitor I want to mention is resolution, which is much more self-explanatory. The basics here are that monitors with a higher resolution contain more pixels than ones with a lower resolution. This makes images appear sharper and results in a much clearer picture in games. Going from a low resolution to a high resolution display is basically like putting on a new pair of glasses. Everything just feels much more crisp than it used to. Here, the next big issue with cheap panels comes up. A common problem with displays is what's called a dead pixel. One pixel on the panel is unable to be changed from its default off state, leading to a permanent black dot somewhere on the display. These are pretty easy to see during the manufacturing process, but some panels are allowed through if they're within certain tolerances from the manufacturer. A dead pixel in the very corner of the screen, for example, is no big deal, and if you have an OLED TV, you probably have quite a few. Sorry if you can never unsee them now. The other way a dead pixel might slip past is if it's a dead subpixel, so if just the red, green, or blue part of a pixel is unresponsive. The only way for a consumer to spot a dead subpixel easily is to put a completely solid color image over your screen, which I highly recommend doing. I'll leave a link to Dead Pixel Buddy in the description for those curious to try their own displays out. Now that we understand the basics of gaming monitors and the problems they can have, let's talk about product binning. If you've been in the computer world for a while, you've probably heard this term used before. It's basically the practice of sampling products from a certain batch of your production line. In this case, my monitor used a Samsung panel that was fabricated in 2016, and determining how good it is. Things like dead pixels, refresh rate capability, and pixel response time are measured, and then the batch is given a score. The worse a score the batch earns, the cheaper it's sold for. Then, the company producing the item, Samsung, gets to decide which of its panels to keep and which ones to sell and at what price. This is why even rival companies will use each other's materials. For example, iPhones still use Samsung screens because it's cheaper than making their own. Anyway, the absolute bottom of the barrel will be sold to companies willing to pay very little for an objectively worse version of a product. You can probably guess where this is going. Cheapo monitors and TVs from value brands like Biotech, Scepter, and On are so inexpensive because they're made with the absolute cheapest batches of panels that the manufacturer can find. Sometimes this will be as subtle as a dead pixel here or there, but very often it's possible to find issues with an entire batch of panels sold to these manufacturers. For example, the batch of Samsung panels that Biotech used for my display feature a very strange issue. If the monitor is left off for a period of time, it develops strange lines when used in the 144 refresh rate mode. I have a sneaking suspicion that this is the result of the panel not being suitable for 144 Hz operation, which is why Samsung didn't keep it. I'm not actually the only person to experience this problem. Linus Tech Tips actually showed that Colton's monitor had the same bug, and big surprise, it used a Samsung panel fabricated in 2016.
Actually, show the monitor. This is fantastic.
Your monitor's broken.
I've been living with this for the last year and a half. Okay, so then what I gotta do is I gotta leave something moving on the screen, and I gotta leave it for about half an hour, and then randomly, it'll just go, it's totally fine.
This issue has persisted through panel resets, power cycles, and different computers altogether. The display is also too heavy to be used on a monitor arm owing to an internal power supply that was used for it. It has a super cheap stand with no height adjust or swivel, and the screen itself has a very bad image processor. Just look at the image on these two panels, which are the same resolution, and tell me which one is more appealing. Cheap monitors are cheap through and through. Even a great panel will look bad when paired with poor image processing power, and the savings on price are only going to come back to bite you once you realize the true meaning of a smeary mess. On top of that, because I can't turn the monitor off due to the aforementioned spooky lines of death, I can't actually let my computer screen turn off. Ever. I have an all-black screensaver that kicks in after 10 minutes, but it still means this monitor is on 24/7, which has begun killing pixels. Yes, dear viewers, cheap monitors might not only come to you with dead pixels, they might also have faulty ones that can die if overworked. Look, I'm not saying you can't find high-quality products made with cheap parts. What I'm saying is that the potential drawbacks of cheaping out on something far outweigh the short-term savings of a crappy monitor. Even product reviews are somewhat untrustworthy given how luck-based the nature of getting a bad product can be. Buying from a name brand like LG, Samsung, or Omen greatly improves your odds of getting a quality product because, remember, they made the parts they're using. More importantly, if your monitor does come with defects, you can likely count on the company you bought it from to honor their warranty. I recently made the move to a new monitor, the Omen 27i, after struggling with this cheap Viatech one for over 2 years, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. It costs almost twice the price from Amazon, but it's the same resolution and a higher refresh rate, and I can actually turn it off. Whether you want to cheap out on your monitor is ultimately up to your particular risk appetite, but I do not recommend it. Best of all, high-quality monitors are much less likely to degrade with use, meaning buying a used monitor is actually a lot safer bet when you look for name brand ones, and the monitor you buy now will probably still hold its value in a couple of years. That's all I have for today, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know that success stories do exist out there, so let me know if you've been rocking a super cheap gaming monitor down in the comments.